The 26-27 NHL season is the most pivotal one for the Chicago Blackhawks in over 10 years. As we know, over the course of an NHL season, anything can happen. Teams can rise and fall, and players can emerge into superstars or minor leaguers. In this video, I'm going to give you my 5 bold predictions for the Blackhawks 26-27 season, and I would love to get your thoughts on each and every one of them in the comments, as well as any bold predictions of your own. For the sake of time, I'm going to jump straight into my first bold prediction, and that is that Roman Kantserov will offensively outproduce Anton Frondell this year. Now, this prediction isn't as much of a knock on Anton Frondell as much as it is just a result of the different roles they're going to be asked to play this year for the Blackhawks. I think Roman Kantserov is going to be stapled to Connor Bedard's wing when he comes back. I think he's going to be playing on the top line, whereas I think Anton Frondell is going to be, we already know they want him playing center. I think he's going to be used as the second or third line center and more as a matchup center. They're using him for his defensive capabilities more than his offensive capabilities. I also think that Roman Kantserov is more likely to play on power play 1 throughout the year than Anton Frondell is, and that might be a little shocking, but I think Anton Frondell's best position on the power play is the right half wall where Patrick Kane plays. I don't think the Blackhawks are bringing in Patrick Kane and paying him $8 million per year for the next 2 seasons to have him not operate power play 1. And so Roman Kantserov is the guy who's going to be in the bumper position. That's the position he played all throughout the season in the KHL and scored a ton of goals there. I don't think Frondell's going to be net front because I think that's still going to be Tyler Bertuzzi. And so when you combine those 3 things, Kantserov playing on the first line as a winger, likely with Connor Bedard, Frondell playing a more defensive center role and he just has more defensive responsibilities than Roman Kantserov will, and then also Kantserov being more likely to be on power play 1 throughout the season. I think that will lead to Kantserov scoring more points than Anton Frondell. This is not like I don't think necessarily that Kantserov is going to have a better season than Anton Frondell. Like, I think Frondell could score 15 points less than Kantserov and be viewed as like one of the emerging young centermen in the NHL, and that would be more valuable to the Chicago Blackhawks than whatever points Roman Kantserov puts up. This is strictly an offensive production prediction. I don't think either of them are going to win the Calder Trophy, to be honest with you. Just because, I mean, when you think about the other front runners, Porter Martone, with the publicity he gained this past year in the playoffs, you think about Gavin McKenna's probably going to be stapled to the first line with guys like Austin Matthews and Matthew Nyes. You think about Stenberg's probably going to be on the first line with Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith. There's just other guys, other bigger names than Frondell and Kantserov that are going to be put in better positions to score a lot of points, and normally that's what we see win the Calder Trophy. It's just offensive output, because most journalists, the people who are voting on this stuff, don't watch all the games of these players. They keep an eye on stats, they watch primetime games, etc. And so I think it's unlikely that Kantserov or Frondell win the Calder. Maybe they're in the conversation. Maybe Kantserov finds himself in the conversation just because he is a little bit older. Like, I could totally see things going wrong for a Stenberg or McKenna in their first year in the National Hockey League. Kantserov's just going to be a little more stronger and a little more fit for, I think, the size and pace of the NHL than those two will be. But it's hard to imagine those guys aren't going to be given every single possible opportunity to go out and win the Calder Trophy. And the NHL wants stars like that winning the Calder Trophy more so than Roman Kantserov, 21-year-olds that are coming over from the KHL that not a whole ton of people are aware of. So that is my first prediction. Before I get into my second, I want to tell you about the sponsor of this video. That is myself, LeeGrossman.store. If you want to support this channel so that I don't have to, get a partnership with like Bet365 or some of these other gambling sites or like a dispensary or something, which I'm not above. Like, I might get to the point where I need to sell out and start advertising for whatever these betting companies. I'm not above that. I'm not suggesting that I am above that, but I would love to fully support this channel through merch, through my own products, and selling you something that is actually good for you and your soul. As much as I think, a fucking Sunnyside or an Ivy Hall sponsorship would be great for my audience, just so that you guys are pacified throughout the day, high out of your minds, or spending all of your money on gambling websites. I would just prefer you to go to leegrossman.store and pick up a t-shirt like this. Bedard _Celebrini. That shirt is available on leegrossman.store for $25. That is $25. That is it. It will be in the link of this description, leegrossman.store. Now, let's get into my second prediction, and that is that Frank Nazar is going to score 60-plus points this year. I think it is going to be an absolute monstrous season, a monstrous bounce-back season for Frank Nazar. This is the first year that his 6.7 or 6.6, whatever it is, $1 million contract is coming into effect. Last year, he dealt with a couple of injuries, the sophomore slump. I think he's just a player that, and I've said this on the channel before, he absolutely thrives on confidence, and I think he's going to be the first line center to start the year while Bedard is out, playing probably on power play one with Patrick Kane, with some of these other offensive producers that are joining the team like Roman Kantserov. I think he's going to have all the opportunity in the world to start the season on a strong foot. I think if he stays healthy and then he'll slot down the lineup a little bit as Connor Bedard comes back, I think he's going to build and feed off that confidence that he gets at the start of the year from being the guy. And, all this talk about Byram and Kantserov and Frondell and Patrick Kane, I think Frank Nazar is going to emerge as the second best player on the Chicago Blackhawks next season, and I can't wait for it. I am predicting 60. I think he's going to be close to a point per game. You never know if guys get injured, or he'll probably have like a little slump mid-season, and so I'm predicting 60 points instead of 82 or 84, but I think he'll be close to that point per game pace. I'll predict like 25 and 35 for 60 points for Frank Nazar this season. I can't wait. People are going to be talking about that contract like it is one of the best in the NHL, not just because of the number, but also because of the term on it, which is what I said about the contract when it was signed last summer. Now, for my third prediction in this video, I have Spencer Knight finishing the year with at least a .907 save percentage and being in the Vezina conversation. I think if the Chicago Blackhawks are anywhere around the playoff bubble, I think it is going to be largely off the back of Spencer Knight being an absolute monster. If you've been watching the videos on my channel over the past few weeks, I've been talking about how I think it is likely that this Chicago Blackhawks team regresses defensively slightly from last year, given how many defensive players they lost over the course of last season. However, I think in the face of adversity, Spencer Knight is going to get better. We've seen him get better over the course of the year and a half that we've had him. I think that the Blackhawks not selling at the trade deadline this year will also be very helpful for Spencer Knight. If you go back and you look at his save percentages and his goals against throughout the entire season, it absolutely, his save percentage took a nosedive after the trade deadline. I think with that not happening this year, I think that will bolster his save percentage. And I think he's going to face a lot of shots. His goals against average may stay the same or maybe even go up a little bit, but I think his save percentage will climb past the .902 that he finished with this past year. And yeah, if the Blackhawks are somehow able to make the playoffs, which it isn't an insane, like out of the question chance, the sportsbook have the Chicago Blackhawks odds of making the playoffs this year at plus 400. That's not impossible. If they're anywhere near that, Spencer Knight better be in Vezina conversation, because he's going to be playing close to 60 games. Like, there aren't going to be a ton of goalies in the show playing more than Spencer Knight next year, just because of the backup situation. Arvid Soderblom was basically giving up one more goal than Spencer Knight was every single game last year. And granted, I feel bad for Arvid Soderblom because the Blackhawks were so bad defensively and gave up so many high quality chances. I think a lot of that is going to be the same this next year, but the fact that Spencer Knight was giving up one less goal than Soderblom every single game, was fucking nuts. And so even if Drew Commesso fights for that backup spot, I don't think it's going to be at the caliber of Spencer Knight. You're not going to be wanting to do anything remotely near an even split for Drew Commesso and Spencer Knight. So I think Spencer Knight's going to play a ton of games, and I think he's going to improve from last year and be in the Vezina conversation. Now, for my fourth bold prediction, and this is one of the bold ones. I believe that before the trade deadline in March, the Chicago Blackhawks will go out and make a major trade. I think they will likely bring in a monster forward. And you know what? I can hear you. I can hear you behind the camera. Calm down. I literally, what was that? Who? You guys sound like owls behind the camera. Who are they gonna? You know what? For the sake of this bold, because I hate when people like, oh, this is my bold prediction video. Connor Bedard's going to be good. I'm going to make this bold. I think the Chicago Blackhawks are going to trade for Kirill Marchenko from the Columbus Blue Jackets before the March trade deadline. I think a trade for a monster forward, whether it's Marchenko or someone else, is going to include players like, but not limited to, Oliver Moore, Nick Lardis, Wyatt Kaiser, Teuvo Teravainen will have to be involved in a deal somehow if you're going to bring in a big name or a decent-sized contract. Kirill Marchenko, it's much easier for him because he's at like a $3.25 million contract this year, so you don't really have to do too much wrestling with the cap this year. The Blackhawks will have much more cap space the following year to, give a big contract to Marchenko. I think the Adam Fantilli contract that's going to have to get signed for Columbus before the start of this season is going to take up all their remaining cap. They have like 12 mil left in cap space. Marchenko's already voiced that he is not going to be re-signing with the team. I think if the Blackhawks are somewhat around the playoff bubble, they are going to be inclined to go out and add. We've heard Elliot Friedman say, watch Chicago this season. They're looking to strike. I think that's the case. The Blackhawks are armed to the gills with assets. I didn't even mention the 3 first-round picks. That's probably not really what Columbus is asking for, first-round picks, but it's definitely going to sweeten the coffee a little bit. I'm calling it Marchenko to the Blackhawks by the March 6th or whatever it is trade deadline. And if that happens and the Blackhawks go out and add a big name forward before the trade deadline, that will absolutely catapult them into my 5th and final prediction, and that is that the Chicago Blackhawks will finish with 88 plus points this year in the NHL. That is a 16-point jump from last year. That probably puts them around a playoff spot. Maybe it gets them wild card 2. Maybe it doesn't. This is not me predicting them to make the playoffs. This is me predicting them to make a 16-plus point jump from last year. I think, last year they jumped 11 points. I think that jump would have been much greater had Bedard not gotten injured in the middle of the season, had the team not traded at the deadline. I think they're going to bring in players at the deadline, like I just said in my last prediction. And I think Bedard, once he returns from the shoulder injury at the start of the season, I think the team will absolutely get rolling and they will be around that wild card spot. And so I just cannot wait for this massive jump for the Blackhawks. I think there are other teams in the Western Conference that are getting worse, that are regressing or staying in no man's land. The no man's land teams include, but are not limited to, LA, St. Louis, Nashville. I think Anaheim's regressing. San Jose is a bit of a wild card. I think Winnipeg is regressing. I think all these things lead to the opportunity for the Chicago Blackhawks to not just take a jump in points, but start leapfrogging teams in the Western Conference and getting back to the playoffs. And I think that's really going to start to happen this year because, as I said at the start of this video, this is the most pivotal Blackhawks season in over a decade, and I cannot wait for it. I will be covering the entire thing on this channel. Lee Grossman won. I don't know why it's Lee Grossman won. I think Lee Grossman was taken. Who the fuck? Where are the other Lee Grossmans out there? Let me find him and kill him so I can just have Lee Grossman. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell. Support me by going to leegrossman.store. Link in the description of this video and getting yourself a t-shirt. It is going to be a marvelous, super exciting season. And I know you're going to be following along, so make sure you're doing it here on this channel with me. Live streams throughout the year, videos, breakdowns, podcasts, interviews, etc., all of it. I cannot wait. If you enjoyed this video, watch this one next. It's me going through my under 23 Blackhawks pipeline, giving my top 17 players under the age of 23. And as I said prior, subscribe to the channel right here. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. And as always, go Blackhawks.